And we are back again, this time with great news instead of the normal Debbie Downer effect that we've had in Broncos country for the last handful of weeks. David, why don't you go ahead and introduce us, buddy?
Everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Uncommon Man podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, okay, let's start this off. I think this has been the worst season as far as luck as Denver Broncos fans that I've ever seen. It feels like we just keep getting further and further and further stuck in that hole. But hey, we got some good stuff on the horizon here after the season actually ends. So let's kind of get into it. So there's been a lot of things kind of circulating around Broncos, around Death Valley with our cornerbacks. Our quarterback situation isn't getting any better. It is getting worse. In 2 weeks, we have lost not one, not two, but 3 cornerbacks in the past 2 weeks. Mike.
Yeah, it's been a tough one for sure. 2 of them one was a projected revolving starter, and he performed admirably all season with the Sangbassi. Bouye was projected to be an all-season starter. Obviously, his scenario is a little bit more complex than the other one. And then Bryce Callahan injured again. So, yeah, it's been a tough one for us, especially in the backfield. On a positive note, Kareem Jackson's been playing pretty solid. Justin Simmons has been – I mean, there's no way to not pay the guy at this point. He's been phenomenal. Nothing shy of first-tier All-Pro. And then I want to also credit Ojemudia, dude. That guy has been the most unsung hero probably in the NFL when it comes to the rookies. Nobody's given that guy any credit, but he has been locked down and consistent all season as a rookie cornerback, and he's cerebral, dude. I mean, he didn't get burnt once by Tyreek Hill watching that game. The only person who got smoked by Tyreek Hill was the breakup was by Bouye, and then which technically was a touchdown. They just didn't argue it. Then the other one was Duke Dawson playing free safety, and he just got smoked. So, yes. Which luckily ended up coming back anyways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so if y'all haven't heard the news, so Bryce Callahan has been out for a few weeks. He's projected to be out for, I believe, another 2 weeks. Insane Bassi, we lost him for a season. I believe he has a torn ACL, so he's done. And AJ Bouye got popped for PED, and he is suspended for 6 games, which just takes him out for the rest of the year. So you have to ask yourself this: what do we do as far as cornerbacks? Okay, we have hit a cornerback roadblock. You try to get by the rest of the season as best as you can. Okay, yes, Devontae Bosby, he's coming back. We're going to see a lot more of Ojemudia. I completely agree with Mike when I feel like Ojemudia has been phenomenal as a young starter. So to see his progression going forward, we're really excited about that. But there's some people that we feel like, hey, you kind of should just move on from. Duke Dawson, I don't know why we keep putting that guy in there. You're going to see a lot of more of Devontae Harris.
Devontae Harris in Baltimore.
Oh, so he's gone. He's shipped out already.
Yep.
So, we're in a real tough spot, okay? So that's going to take us to what we feel like we should do round 1 with our first overall pick. Me and Mike, we're kind of flip-flop on this a little bit, but I think we're coming around to seeing eye and eye on who we should pick number 1. Mike, talk about your first-round draft pick for the Broncos. Who you thought it should be?
So I don't want to sound long-winded on here, but you know what? Here, let's do this. Let's backpedal a little bit, David. I'd like to get to the point of why I'm addressing this particular position. I think that as we can sit there and reflect on the Kansas City game, what were your initial impact thoughts of that? Were you impressed? Were you impressed? Were you defeated? I mean, how'd you feel about let's start with the offense. Obviously, that's going to be the giant elephant in the room.
Mm-hmm. Well, I knew for a fact that we wasn't going to go in and beat Kansas City in Arrowhead, but we had certain expectations going into the game, and I feel like that we met it. Me and you talked before the game, and I said part of the offensive plan was keep Patrick Mahomes on the sideline. Okay, and I feel like they did that. They ate up and they controlled a lot of the clock, and they did pretty good. Now we didn't finish. Okay, when it came down most to it, we just didn't finish. Okay, there were still some issues that we saw with certain people not being targeted, some people not getting any kind of catches, anything like that. How do you not throw Jerry Jeudy the ball? How do you not throw Noah Fant the ball? It's little things like that. But also, you saw some people rise up. KJ Hamler. I mean, he was out there making people miss left and right. So as far as the offense, I feel better. Okay, I feel a lot better. I feel like we had a game plan. We stuck to it. Of course, they're young. There's a lot of things that we need to clean up. I do think Drew Lock deserves another season in the same offensive scheme with the same people and just get their chemistry down.
I know that I've probably been the most vocal about this situation, especially just going off raw emotion after some of the losses. And hell, even some of the wins that were they were pretty dismal. But there was almost no margin for error for a lot of those games. And but I 100% agree with you. After watching this game, you and I talked briefly about it, and we both came to the immediate conclusion that just because this was a loss doesn't mean that it was a complete loss. And I think in most aspects it was actually a victory. Like the offense, I saw Drew Lock actually become more mobile. Vision is one of those things. Look, dude, it's the NFL. It's tough. We saw last week you can't just walk into a game and be an all-star. It's physically impossible. But for what it's valued at, the only things that I have any critique for at this point is that the chemistry with Jerry Jeudy is really perplexing at this point. They just don't seem to be on the same page. And, hopefully another offseason together, maybe they'll start establishing that. And then the lack of utilization with Noah Fant is also concerning. But in the long run, I think what we saw on Sunday night was enough for us to both be on board for giving the entire system another year. Defensively, I see the people that we seem to respect in the Broncos community, they all come to the same conclusion, which is Vic Fangio has been the best coach that we've had in a handful of years, arguably since Gary Kubiak, although I guess there's only been one other one. But our defense has been fantastic. We got no complaints there. The only thing that we haven't done, and I think it becomes the fact that we've had a spoiled riches for a handful of years with the Manning years, was we've been really impatient with the offense. And unfortunately, it is going to take a handful of years to let established quarterbacks and an unestablished quarterback and an established quarterback's coach / offensive coordinator start getting in sync with each other. And I think once we give them a little bit of time, let them do just that, synchronize. I think we'll see a lot more progression next season. Also, hopefully we don't get bit by the injury bug. But otherwise, the Kansas City game on Sunday, I just want to give a thumbs up. I was really impressed. They didn't get blown out. And for the most part, they were able to move the ball when it mattered most. They gave the defense a break. Dude, 2 first downs, I mean, that changes the entire dynamics of the game just from a defensive standpoint. 2 first downs, I mean, that's an extra 2 to 3 minutes of clock time that you get to mulch off and actually catch your breath, start re-oxygenating the body, relax for a few seconds, and then get back out there for your next schedule. So even more so when you put the ball in the end zone. And, I mean, they did do that as well. So, like I said, I was thoroughly impressed. I had no complaints. I'm a little upset. I think we both can agree that the whole process with Baltimore right now, we have no specific issues with Baltimore or their fans, but the way the NFL is handling this Baltimore situation right now with the COVID thing, especially after Dez Bryant yesterday, they pulled him off the field as if he hasn't been in contact. There's photographs of him hugging people before the game. They pulled him off the field saying that nobody was in any dire contact with him, and therefore the game could continue. That was really frustrating considering they shut down our entire quarterbacks room for whatever their thought process was in that. I'm pretty frustrated with that situation.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a lot of rhyme or reason going on with a lot of this stuff, but
Yeah, they're pampering a couple teams.
Yeah, they're showing favoritism, so that's all good. Again, once Broncos rise back to prominence, we'll start getting some of that favoritism thrown our way. All right, so I think we can all agree that hey, going forward the rest of the season, I mean, it's just seeing progression out of certain positions and certain people on the team. Okay, I mean, we're not going to win too many more games. I mean, it's going to be what it is. So we have to start looking. Okay, if we're picking, because right now we're picking at number 10 in the draft, and if we're picking at number 10, who are we taking? What needs to be our first priority and our first target in the draft? Personally, I feel like our first priority should be cornerback. And let me explain why, okay? Next year, after the 2021 season, you have a lot of big decisions to make in the secondary on our defense, okay? Kareem Jackson, his contract is going to be up. AJ Bouye, you have to decide what you're going to do on his contract. And Bryce Callahan, you got to decide what you're going to do with him, okay? With what we all hope, Justin Simmons will be getting his payday very soon. So that's going to take up a large chunk of the money. Okay, so again, what are you going to do with those three particular people on the team? Do you start to renew some of them? Kareem Jackson, he's getting pretty old. I don't see Broncos renewing him. Bryce Callahan, he's always hurt, even though he's playing at a Pro Bowl level this year. Again, I just don't see them re-signing him, especially with his injury history. Then AJ Bouye. I can see them re-signing AJ Bouye, but you gotta think about it. You're going to give Justin Simmons a really big contract, and you're going to give AJ Bouye. What are you going to do with him? So I think it's really important that we take a cornerback at number 10. If we're still picking there, so right now, for my money, I want to see a cornerback at number 10.
All right, buddy. So let's roll through real quick and what our options are, and you tell me number 10 what you think the most plausible scenario is going to be. So we've got.
Okay. So right now, as this sit, Caleb, the cornerback from Virginia Tech, he's actually rated the highest. He's rated number 1 as far as the cornerback. Patrick Surtain, he's rated number 2. Either way it go, I will be fine with either one. Number 3, you're coming in as Sean Wade. I think number 4 is, and this is just notes that I've kind of gathered from different sites. I think I got this from CBS maybe. Darian Kendrick, that's another cornerback, and Eric Stokes.
I don't know.
5th.
I don't know how to feel about Farley right off the bat.
Okay.
Obviously, Surtain, he's got a pretty solid lineage. J.C. Horn's another one. That guy's actually been mocked to us. When you were mentioning, you're talking to. How do you feel about the kid out of Stanford, Paulson Adebo?
Honestly, Paulson Adebo, he's always been projected pretty low, in my opinion. Him being at Stanford, he's probably a pretty cerebral guy. But as far as athleticism, he's probably not the most athletic person.
Yeah, I never really saw it either.
I don't want to have – so Ojemudia, he's cerebral. He's not the most athletic one out of the bunch. And I don't want to have a bunch of cerebral, unathletic motherfuckers back there at cornerback.
Fair enough.
You got to have some kind of studs back there at some point.
So, all right, buddy. So, gun to your head. You're at the 10th spot. Let's shake things up a bit here. And we're going to go to CBS's mock draft that you can find on their website. This is as of today. Mm-hmm. So they have taken cornerbacks off the board. I mean, it stands to reason. Patrick Surtain to the Eagles at pick 6. Pick 6. Then they had Farley actually going to the Falcons, which I completely believe that as well. The Falcons just They have a habit of only drafting off the East Coast for some reason.
I
So
wonder why.
right. So that leaves us with D-line, but let's see what else going further down. So the next one off the board would be Darian Kendrick. Let's see where he's rated at. This is per Walter Football and how they feel. I mean, you guys can take that as it is. We're just using this strictly as a reference. So, I mean, it's easy access to look at. Walter Football has great notes on most of these characters. So here's Darian Kendrick. Yeah, so they have
So
him
he's
ranked.
projected a little bit lower, round 2 to 4.
Yeah.
He's 6 foot 190. I mean, he's a average size cornerback.
Yeah.
But if J.C. Horn, and from what I saw, he was still on the board when the Broncos got to number 10. So if Surtain and Farley are already gone, and you have J.C. Horn and Sean Wade still on the board, I'm going one of those two routes. I'm probably going Sean Wade if I had to pick. Gun in my head.
So why are you going with Sean Wade over J.C. Horn?
I felt like he was one of the top cornerbacks if he would have came out last year. If he would have came out last year, outside of old boy that went to Detroit, he was probably still one of the top cornerbacks from last year's draft.
I won't argue that.
Granted, we haven't got a good picture on what he's been so far this year because Ohio State, they're good one game. Next week, they're not good. Good one week, not good the next week. But that leads me to believe there's a lot of opportunity for him to just be working out and just training. So take that for what it is. If that board falls the way that it is, I'm taking Sean Wade at 10.
Okay. So what would be your next position? Let's say you don't have either one of those guys available. What would you want to do?
Have anyone's got, I would have to go inside linebacker. Now, Do I think this is going to happen? No. Okay. We have to be very realistic. Okay. We've watched John Elway draft over the past couple of years. So we have an ideal of what he will do and what he won't do. I just do not see him taking a linebacker at number 10, unless it's Isaiah Simmons. Okay. But none of these linebackers are Isaiah Simmons. Okay. Let's be honest. So outside of the first two guys, I wouldn't touch any linebacker in the first round.
So
I think the top 5 guys, you can get them outside of the first 2, you can get them later on in the draft. Michael Parsons, he'll probably go in the first round for sure. But anybody else, you can take them later.
Yeah, it's looking like we have Michael Parsons projected at 15. I'm guessing because of the fact they opted out of Penn State this year.
Mm-hmm.
But so next one up would be Dylan Moses out of Alabama, which I mean so far he's had a fantastic season too.
But I don't know if he's the best fit for what we're looking for with the Broncos. He's too much like A.J. Johnson. I don't know if he's the best coverage linebacker out there. I mean, he's a beast in the run game. Don't get me wrong, but I think he may be too much like A.J. Johnson. So I would look for somebody who's a little bit more versatile. So I guess I would go to Nick Bolton from Mizzou. Scroll down a little bit. I think he's maybe next. Or he's maybe on down just a little bit. Dang, Walter, they got him way down there then.
Yeah, I saw him come across as a higher portion draft pick. They may not have updated this in a bit.
Yeah.
Let's do this. I just saw him. I think that he was right about.
Go back up right to Buffalo.
Mm-hmm. Small, lightning, quick, and another linebacker plays the game with reckless abandon. Ooh, that's fancy.
Yeah, so if he's quick and he's light on his feet, he may be pretty good in coverage. Again, he's somebody that I would have to watch a little bit more. But I think that that'll be another option. He may even fall to the second round because he is coming out of Mizzou. So unless he just lights up the combine, if we have one, that's probably the only other thing I can think of.
Okay. Well, like I said, I agree with both of those now, especially at the cornerback position, given AJ Bouye's status. That really threw a monkey wrench in the operation. Um,
And
so
then you got to remember, hold on one second. And then you got to remember, with making this pick, you're also planning for the future because, as I noted, you have three of your secondary contracts coming up in 2021. You're definitely not going to sign all of them, especially what you're going to do with Justin Simmons. So taking a rookie will help alleviate some of that issue.
agreed. Yeah. Well, and you're pretty much forced to take a first rounder. Now, see, the thing that we'll discuss a little bit later, not on this episode, but in a future episode, so stay tuned. We're going to talk about whether or not it's beneficial for the Broncos, given the fact that I mean, in our opinion, they have at least a temporary franchise quarterback that they need to give the next season to. It opens a lot of doors for them to be able to mess around in the draft. I mean, they can move around, do things that you generally don't have to do. I mean, that gave us a lot of leeway this year with drafting our first receiver out of Alabama. We've seen what Judy can do with our third string quarterback. Now, hopefully, we can start seeing, like I said, a little bit more chemistry with the first string quarterback. But that transitions into what my pick would be, which was we just closed bowls for an extra 3 years now, left tackle, which justifiably so. He's had a deservedly great year. We've been really impressed with him. We have been singing his praises the last couple of years. A lot of people have been giving the guy crap, but we've stated the exact same thing over and over again. We've been beating it down, and that is the fact. If your quarterback stinks, doesn't get rid of the football, and doesn't move, there's only so much you can do on the offensive line to try and actually support the guy. So, I mean, it's a symbiote circumstance, and if you can't meet somebody halfway in that regard, you're going to have a disconnect. And unfortunately, everybody thinks that it's Garrett Bowles' fault. Maybe he did have a few issues there, but literally, if you look at the stats, ever since Drew Lock took over and was able to move out of the pocket, all of Garrett Bowles' stats just skyrocketed almost instantaneously. So I completely agree. I'm happy for him. Congrats, on the contract extension. But that brings me to my pick, which is I feel like we need to get a right tackle, especially Drew Lock. Drew Lock has a tendency to roll out to his right-hand side, and the right side of our offensive line has been garbage.
Yes. It's been uneventful. Okay, so when looking at right tackle, yes, we have a high-paid piece of shit right tackle who, for the last 2 years, has hardly played, and we're not too hopeful that he's going to play next year. It just depends on how he feels and if he just wants to collect his paycheck or just be a big-ass, soft-ass baby. So when we go back up to the number one right tackle or tackle, Penei Sewell, there's no way that you're going to get Penei Sewell.
No,
okay?
it's
He's
over.
going to be long gone for a 10. So then you have to start looking at, okay, who else is there? And maybe this is one of the things, the guy from Texas, he's played a lot of football. Leatherwood, a lot of y'all probably remember that name from last year. He was thrown around a lot last year, but then he decided to go back to school. So that's a good option. Notre Dame, those boys been playing good football up there. So that guy, he's again another potential pick. I'm not. I like the idea of taking a tackle so you can free up. Just go ahead and solidify that offensive line. But with everything that kind of came out is we really have to weigh our options on their choice.
So that's something that we're going to go into, like I said, in an ensuing pod. We're going to discuss that a little bit further detail, my game plan with it. There's no way I'd take any one of these right tackles. Most of these guys are left tackles, by the way. I think Leatherwood was the only one that played transitional between right and left. But Cosme was left tackle. The other big one was Liam Eichenberg. Obviously, Notre Dame is offensive line U, so that would be another one. But the problem is he's a dominant left tackle as well. So here's what that does for me. That gives me the ability to trade down, pick one of these guys up later on, and start accumulating a whole bunch of draft capital because we're already a young team. We've got a handful of veterans. You said the key word earlier. It's about looking down the line, dude. It's about checking those train tracks a little bit further down, seeing whether or not there's any pennies along the line. If it's all clean, then we just keep chugging along. So the process would be, hey, let's stack up a handful more rookies. That way, 2 to 3 years, next year included, we start egressing some of these contracts. Juwan James. We've got somebody in the works to replace him. So, I mean, we don't just
absolutely.
Like with Moody right now, they're not having to throw him out to the wolves every drive already. I think Kush was in a tough situation. He's handled it as we figured he would. I think he's performed pretty admirably. Obviously, he's had his mishaps here and there throughout the season, but for the most part, he's been pretty much a stalwart for a starting center rookie. So, the right guard position's a little questionable. Moody may end up getting a little bit more time there. But for the most part, he's been able to heal this season, and he's been able to learn the position a little bit better, especially from, a top-quality veteran like Glasgow. Hopefully we get him back soon. He's going through a nagging injury right now. And then, that enables Drew Lock to start opening up the offense as well as Pat Shurmur start opening up the offense to do different things. A statistic dropped today. Apparently, Drew Lock actually has the most attempts downfield, which is 180 degrees out from everything we've seen for the last, 4 years, bro? With attempts within 20 yards. Generally, that's our statistic. We're within the top 3 on that one, as opposed to outside of 20 yards, in which case we're always 31, 32. Well, it's 180 degrees now because Drew Lock's throwing the ball down the field, and I like that. Eventually, you're going to start connecting consistently. Tim Patrick has been insane. The guy is
reliable.
Dude, he's got the replacements glue on his mitts. So
come on, coach, like a jacked off elephant. What are you gonna do? Throw you in football jail? I watched that movie online. So
I'm just glad that you got that reference.
Yeah. So I like what Mike said is that gives us a lot of wiggle room. Okay, so we can trade down and we can accumulate some more picks. As much as we hate to say it, Juwan James, he's still under contract and there's no way getting rid of him because it's that's a huge dead cap hit. So we can accumulate some more draft picks and hopefully we find a solid right tackle, either if it's, on down the draft somewhere to where you can develop the kid, okay? You can let him develop. So even if Juwan James doesn't make it an entire season, you got old Mike Munchak there. We can develop the kid and boom, insert him, ready to play. I like that idea, sir.
Yeah, dude. I got to be honest, man. We've obviously had our ups and downs this season, a lot of downs. We've the biggest deal that we impressed upon coming into the season was just saying the progression aspect, and you nailed it earlier. And it seems like we're starting to actually witness that. And if that is the case, then there's a lot of hope in the future. Dude, this team is friggin' young, man. I mean, the rebuild, it's been a legit rebuild. They haven't just been trying to bring in a bunch of slop the last 2 seasons. Last 3 seasons, they've been trying to build a young nucleus and then now they've got a quarterback who a lot of us sit there and we see the potential in. And, it might take him a couple of years. That's just the inevitability of it. But we have seen – the difference is we've seen the excerpts of success with him at Mizzou playing with a dismal team as opposed to playing with the Broncos. Denver's a great team. That's a stacked team. The difference is it's the NFL. I mean, you're going from 18 to 21-year-olds to grown men, and there is a there's a major difference between 25 and 18. So both physically, mentally, there's a whole different stability to it as you get older. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm not disappointed with anything I saw, and especially at the Kansas City game last week. They didn't get annihilated, and there was a lot of progression when it came to moving the ball down the field and getting those crucial first downs that matter most. KJ Hamler stepping up, Tim Patrick. I mean, what an absolute gem he's been as a replacement for Cortland Sutton, and hell, even last year too, as opposition for Cortland Sutton. You know, him and Drew Lock started establishing a lot of chemistry right off the bat. So yeah, dude, this team really has some great potential. This has been a wild season. And but I hopefully a little bit more stability next year. We're going to see them hit that next crest that we've been hoping for.
For sure. Right, folks. That's our take on this past week's game and kind of where we sit as far as where the Broncos should be picking number one. Hey, if you feel like the Broncos should be going another direction than number one, leave a comment. Also, like, share, subscribe. Mike, got anything else to add?
That's it, man. It's always good getting to talk with you, and especially talking about our most beloved sport on the face of the planet, which is football. Although the other good thing about it, anybody that follows us that's big on the Avalanche, NHL starts up January 13th. So they're supposed to be getting back into actual season, start preseason then, and we will be going from there. David and I will be giving a breakdown on what the current structure is with the divisions. They've had to restructure, or they've had to go back, reassess, and change them up. We got a notification on that earlier today. And to be honest with you, man, the new divisions look really cool. So I'm excited about that. I just love sports, dude. So it's going to be cool getting to talk about next favorite one for me. I know I'm still getting you into it. We're going to get you into it. But that pretty much sums it up for anything that I had.
For sure. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's going to be a wrap to another episode of the Uncommon Man Podcast. I'm your host, David. This is Mike. Later.